Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Soul Seeds, where the wonderful Sapha is my guest expert. And Sapha is a feminine embodiment mentor, and the topic for today is feminine self-authority. So I would love to know really what is feminine self-authority in the first place.
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I've been looking
Thank
forward to
you.
this all week, so this is great.
Mhm.
And I know feminine self-authority sounds like this ridiculous thing, but so think of it as essentially dropping into a place of sovereignty in your life. So my work is around mindful sovereignty, and that means we're looking at the things in your life that you may have been feeling a little bit at the effect of for so
Mhm.
long and reclaiming them and taking a place of authority where you can be the ultimate voice of truth for your heart, for your soul, for your passion, for your impact in this world. At the end of the day, I think that it's been we live in a society that unfortunately has gotten very accustomed to belittling the power of the feminine and to trying to put that aspect in a box, something that feels very palatable, very suitable to a particular narrative. And some of that, what it has done and it creates in people is it generates this fear of speaking up, this fear
Mhm.
of being who we are, this fear of being sort of in our muchness. Like I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, so I always think about that expression from the
Yeah.
movie. Like it's about being in that so much, like in being able to take up space. And so when you really think about it, that self authority space takes up so many different areas. It talks about really landing in your integrity. It
Mhm.
bespeaks of being able to take up space and get capacious in your life where you are going to show up and not shrink for anybody.
Mhm.
It also speaks of ownership and making sure that you are keeping yourself and others in your life accountable, like at the same level, so that you show
Mhm.
up for yourself at a very high degree of presence. So in a sense, that's what self-authority means to me. And I love tying it to the essence of the feminine energetic field
Mhm.
because there is also so much misinformation about that in and of itself that I feel like it's a lot of times we'll hear things that are silly, like the feminine isn't logical, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my
Mhm.
life. But
Yeah, we
it
tie
is
that
out
to
there.
the
It's
masculine,
information.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah. It's information that is out there because we still think of genderized existence.
Right.
Whereas a feminine frequency just carries a very unique sort of tone. Like if you were going to get a tuning fork, right, when you're making
Mhm.
music and try to get it. So it just attunes to a very particular frequency. And in that field, you play at very strong dynamics of power, of authority, of
Mhm.
showing up from a place of integrity, like I said. So you show up from a place of amplified
Mhm.
magnitude instead of playing small, and that means holding yourself also accountable for a
Mm.
certain degree of that field. So it's just this beautiful art form.
Mm. And when you say that, when you are, of course, take responsibility as well, but it also feels like overcoming your own insecurities about what you've been told or how you've been programmed
Mhm.
by those gender roles and by those, traumatic history, maybe even a witch wound, and that to encompass yourself fully and embrace yourself fully as you are as a feminine being.
100%. I'm a huge believer in true self-love. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we're moving in the right direction. We're moving in the direction of healing. And with healing, of course, everything is always a process. There's
Mm-hmm.
moments of going deeper with something. There's times where we might overcorrect a little bit. And so with this journey of healing for a lot of us, that path has been a lot in the world of self-love. I think that we've gotten attached to things that to us might seem like they are self-loving, but are they really? Like one thing that I always tell people to think about is I want you to really sit with yourself and understand loving yourself is is not that it's challenging, but it is as pivotal as loving, a lover or loving your
Mm-hmm.
children, loving your family. It is pivotal, which means you have to be willing to enter into a relationship with self. So loving yourself goes beyond, oh, okay, I'm going to finally embrace my curves. And yet there's a qualifier behind that, right? We
Right.
have to go into the place where we say, no, I'm going to love myself and ask myself to on dates ask myself the questions that are
Mm,
important, get to know this version of me now, because this version is very different from the one yesterday and the one a month
mhm,
ago and a year ago, and enter into a very intimate relationship with self where it is no longer
mhm,
about, oh, I'm a horrible person because I don't know, I get jealous at the person doing a headstand in yoga class where I can't do a headstand, like
mhm,
instead of just going there, it's about observing and getting curious and having that conversation with self and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Tell
mm,
me what's in your heart. Tell me what it is that you're feeling. Tell me what it is that you're perceiving. Tell me where you need to be supported. Tell me where you need to be cared for. Tell me where you need to be cherished. And
mm.
so that
Yeah.
distinction, I think, is so massive because it, again, it's furthering that healing. It's going beyond, oh, if I self-care means baths or
Right.
self-love means, like these things. It's
Mhm.
going further and then deepening it,
Right.
and continuing to kind of deepen more and more. It's almost like pulling at taffy. The more we deepen it, the more we pull at
Mm.
it, the more like stringy it becomes, and also the more delicious, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's also, like you said, it's self-care can also be, like doing a yoga class or taking a long bath or a walk. But the self-love goes deeper. It's like that layer that goes into the shadow work almost, where you have to like uncover the layers of yourself that you actually don't want to work with, but have to actually truly love yourself, right?
100%. 100%. I think that shadow work is probably one of, I always say it saved my life. And I mean it
Mhm.
like so wholeheartedly. I feel
Mhm.
like without the sit down, without those conversations, without the curiosity, without the deepening, without the and it's more than just like it's the willingness to understand and to, like I said, to love that, like to
Mhm.
say, okay, maybe this is a part of myself that scares me, or maybe
Right.
this is a part of myself that I don't understand, but to literally embrace it and
Mhm.
to have a relationship, a viable relationship with that part of self.
Mm.
It just
Right.
makes such a big difference, and it gives room for conversation so that
Mhm.
we don't land in the space of, this is the only way, like this is
Right.
it, this is the only way
Yeah.
that this is going to work, and this is it, anybody outside of that is just evil.
Mhm.
Instead, this gives us, because then the first person that we label as evil is ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
if we don't do that, then that gives us the ability to explore and
Mm.
have that curious, want that to taste, to really have a space for more and for deepening, and to say, okay, that's possible now, and could
Mm.
it be that we could look at it a different way, and if not, then why, and if so, then just you
Mm.
just carry on. I feel like it's the never
Yeah.
ending game question, right?
Right. Yeah. That's for sure. And also, when you say it like this, when we accept ourselves, but I think even the most important part is without judgment, because that's where you get to grow and experience that place
Yeah,
for growth,
yeah,
really, for exploration. And you get more curious about yourself. Like, okay, where's this coming from? You're, like you say, you're asking yourself these questions, and then you continue to grow from there. And you're actually like, okay, maybe I'm not being judgmental now, but I'm being curious now.
exactly. Yeah, it's a romance. Like that's the other thing, is I believe in the ability to romance ourselves for life, right? I feel
Mm,
if anything, we are the one relationship that we will sustain from
mhm.
beginning to end, right? I mean, that is just, there's no escaping that truth.
Right.
People will come and go, and relationships will shift, but we are the one person that we get to explore this life with. And if we make every step sort of like a seduction in action for
Mhm.
ourselves, that mindful self seduction, it just becomes this beautiful, just like a romance for the ages. It becomes this story that we get to tell. And if you think about it, I always tell people this, is like when you first start dating someone, the most exciting part is getting to know them. Like the most
Mhm.
exciting part is the silly stuff. Like, where did you grow up? Do you have kids? Do you like have, like, it's asking all of
Mhm.
these questions that you want to know about their dreams, their aspirations. You want to know everything about them.
Mhm.
And it's when those questions seem to peter off and disappear that sometimes we have difficulty connecting. And it's the
Mhm.
same with ourselves. It's very rare that we hear that we constantly are asking ourselves, okay, is your favorite color blue? Like what is the things that we, and get excited about it and feel
Mhm.
that sense of supple fulfillment from getting to know ourselves deeper, and then to continue that and to go,
Mhm.
well, I don't really know myself like 100% because I'm different. So what has changed? And then
Mm,
going into that exploration, I think, and again, I'm someone who believes in that being a part of all of existence, right? I feel like
right.
if you know me as a friend, you may have known me yesterday, but you don't know me today. So we've got a chance to get to know each other when again. It's the same
Mm,
with your family, the same with your spouse, with your lover, with whatever. And it's the same with you. You have the chance to get to know yourself differently, better, more deeply. And then you might find that, okay, yeah, I was right about you. Like I knew this,
mhm,
and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either.
yeah. And also in like different social situations, we also sort of wear a different mask and become
Mhm.
almost like a different person, or we behave differently. So then it's even more important to get you to know yourself to the core so you know who you are in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I think that that is so, I love that you just said that. So, identity, I think, is so, it's such a curious thing. We
Hmm.
wrap it around very peculiar words and ideals, and we box it up and we believe that this is the wholeness of who we are. With
Hmm.
women in particular, and my work specifically is with women or people who identify as women because this is the heart of the feminine for me has been, again, I say shadow work saved my life. I say this saved my life as well. There's so many things that go into the puzzle, but I say this just to say we have, whenever I speak with women, it doesn't matter what age, there is always this complete wraparound for their identity, whether it's I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, like
Right.
it's asking that question of them and seeing that it's
Hmm.
difficult for them to recognize that they are the vastness of life embodied, right? That is this like the vastness of the universe embodied beyond just whether you're a good girl, whether you're a good
Hmm.
wife, whether you
Right.
fulfill
Beyond the
the
labels we give
parameters of
ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that that's beautiful. Understanding that and giving yourself the chance, the space, the
Right.
way through, that also allows you to be free and
Mm,
understand that there are no shackles and your worth is completely inherent. There's like no label that is going to be
mhm.
like this is the only reason why you're good, like in the entrepreneurship world we see this a lot with like whether you're successful or not, whether you're making certain figures or not. I see
Right.
that a lot and I'm like, regardless of that, you're still worthy, you're still powerful, you're still beautiful. And if you take the identifier off, do you still know who you are? Because that's
Right.
then the next step of this is I do hear a lot of people go, well, I don't even know who I am anymore. And so when we've reached that point, what that tells me is that we've given so much of ourselves
Mhm.
to others, to the identifiers, to the belief systems, to the minimizing of the self in order to seem palatable to the world around us,
Mhm.
that
Right.
we feel like we've just scraped bottom completely. And when you get to that point, I say it's at once it's a beautiful opportunity to replenish and to learn to keep the balance a little bit better. And it
Mhm.
is also really challenging space to be at because we really do believe that we no longer know who we are. When the truth is that the identifiers we've sort of attached meaning to are crumbling. And so
Mm.
it's not that we don't know who we are, it's that we're recognizing we're not just this one thing. And I
Ooh.
think that that's beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you see all the labels falling off, and we identify ourselves or attach our worth to those labels so much when they are crumbling. You're like, okay, who am I now? So that's a great place to start that journey to know yourself again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know how it is. It's, I think that we don't like thinking this.
Mm.
And I'm certainly not saying this is the only way through a breakthrough or an up level, but I find that consistently when we get to that space, when we get to that point where it just feels like we are basically hanging on by a very small thread, when everything looks darkest, when the world has been completely uprooted,
Mhm.
which is in fact the world of the feminine, because it's very deep in the earth, it's very dark, it's very damp, it's very cocooned almost like a womb, but it
Mhm.
doesn't feel as light as like the sun out here. So when we get to that space, that's when we have the capacity to take a deep breath and
Mhm.
be like, okay, where are these roots going to go? And what is this life going to be like? And so it is this beautiful transformation.
Mm. And what would you advise women who are just starting this transformation?
The first thing is be very compassionate with yourself. I think
Mm.
we're very good about making ourselves wrong.
Mm.
especially when we're going through this. So I'll give you a quick example and then I'll give you just one more tip. But so when I was in the middle of going through my divorce, this is like this people know there are certain things in our lives that really mark us. And
Mhm.
I think that this was a beautiful mark for me. I like rejoice at it. Like it was a beautiful experience. And I remember though feeling like the lowest of the low and immediately making myself wrong. Like immediately going, I'm a monster. I'm evil. I'm doing all of this. I'm causing hurt. I'm the
Mm.
problem. I couldn't figure it
I am
out.
to
I
blame.
failed.
Right.
Right.
Mm.
And instead, and it was funny, like I was walking with that. And also because I've been in the work of this for so long, I also was able to walk with that and feed into myself with like, no, like you are lovely, you are beautiful, you are correct, you are valid. Like you
Mhm.
don't need something to be labeled as whatever. And so all that to say, whatever it is that you're going through, whether it feels like your life is falling to pieces, your business didn't work the way you wanted it to, your relationship didn't work the way
Mm.
that you wanted it to, whatever it is that you are going through. And I promise you, no matter how hard it is, you are going to be okay.
Mhm.
And giving yourself the space to be gentle with yourself. I'm not even saying
Mm.
love yourself, because sometimes when we're in this
Right.
space, we don't understand what that love feels like.
Yeah,
Funny
that's a
enough,
level too
we
deep. Yeah.
do. Yeah, but funny enough,
Yeah.
we do that for other people so easily. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we see their darkness and we're like, oh, I will embrace your darkness. I will care for you. And yet we don't do that for ourselves. So try to
Mm.
flip that. Do it for yourself. Embrace yourself. Get to love. Get to a place where you can walk with yourself with
Mhm.
compassion and with grace.
Mm.
And the love will be there whether you want it or not, whether you see it or not. It's just don't
Mhm.
force it. And then the second thing I would say for people who are like in the middle of this is be willing to get curious. Again, I go back to be willing to
Mhm.
ask of yourself what it
Right.
is that you truly need, what it is that is bringing the most palpable experience of emotion about, and what it is that you want to move through, what it is that you want to see. And sometimes that's difficult because when we're in the middle of it, it's so dark. We don't
Mhm.
even see, like, it's kind of like my grandpa used to say, you can't see past your own nose. And so, but it's true. And sometimes we can't get there. It's just a consistent showing up for yourself. If you become devoted to you, like if
Mm.
you just become devoted to, okay, I'm going to show up and today is hard and I'm going to take it one breath at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time, little by little, little pockets of space, little pockets of
Mhm.
life will show up where you can go into that room and be like, okay, I'm ready to welcome in help. Or, okay, I'm ready to have this conversation. Or I'm ready to explore the possibility that I am not, in fact, a monster. And,
Mm.
like, so you give yourself little pockets of space and you take them one little bit at a time. You don't try to, I think when we try to hyperspeed things, when we try to force things,
Right.
not only do we make things worse for ourselves, but we miss the pocket that was going to
Mm.
heal
Right.
us for so long. So again, not to make this all about me, but like to kind of circle back, I think that was one curious thing that I found along the way, is that the reason. So to give you a little bit of the story, I was in a really toxic relationship for about 12, 13 years. And meanwhile, like already doing all of this work and everything, and empowering other people and empowering myself. And it just felt like so dissonant, right? Because it's like,
Mm.
but at the same time, I'm putting myself at risk. And why? Like a lot of times that question would come up. And part of the reason is you try to hyperspeed some things.
Mm.
You try to like get so fast to this thing that you're looking at, and this is the goal right here. And in trying to do that, you're missing the medicine of the lesson in the moment.
Mm.
So I hear this a lot with clients too, who've said, okay, I feel like I'm good. I don't need like mentorship anymore. I don't need therapy. I don't need anything. I'm
Mm.
happy. Everything is great. And like a few
Yeah.
months later, they'll be back. And why am I back here again? And it's like, well, because did you really embody? Did you really integrate? Did you really grab the pocket? Did you make it yours? Did you like set up shop? Did you make it your home?
Right.
Or were you so happy to not feel that pain for just even a second, that all
Right.
you wanted was the release and you
Mm.
wanted to make it bigger and deeper, and then you just were looking at, like, you put blinders on and you just looked at that happy thing and like avoided everything else? Because when we do that, we just stay stuck
Mm.
longer,
Yeah.
because then we're willing to be like, oh, but this was happy. Okay, good. So then I can keep going. And then we forget there's all of this other big scope around it.
Yeah, because we need to give ourselves that time and space to actually, when we ask the questions, to listen to what
Mm.
our body has to say as well.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
100%. The body is so wise, and we do
Yeah,
dismiss her way too often.
yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for this episode, Safa. It was really empowering. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It was so great to see you.